Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I have cookie cake, which I have never tried cookie cake before, but I came across this company on Instagram that's literally called the Cookie Cake Company. I will link them in the description if you want to try them out, but I came across this company on Instagram that sold cookie cakes and I was like, I have to try that. I've never tried a cookie cake before, but as you can see, I think if I remember correctly, it's an M&M and pretzel cookie with a brownie in the middle, salted buttercream, and sprinkles. I think that's it. And then I also made some chicken sandwiches homemade that are kind of falling apart because they're melting, or the cheese is melting all over the place. But I was really craving chicken sandwiches and I decided to try to make them from home. So, I mean, they're not really homemade. I like bought the chicken patties, but like technically homemade. And then I also was really craving some chips with it. So I have something cheddar, zesty cheddar chips that are the orange ones. And then I have sea salt and vinegar chips as well. I'm so excited. I'm hungry. I'm gonna start eating. And then also I'm gonna be talking today. It's been a while since I filmed. I went on vacation kind of with my dad and my sister. We just went up to like Northern California and like stayed at this inn for a couple days. And then when I got back was when things started really getting crazy, and I just took a couple days to like figure out what I wanted to say about it, because I knew I wanted to talk about it, but I wanted to make sure I knew that I was saying what I really meant instead of just speaking out of anger. So I'm going to be talking about the George Floyd murder and essentially my opinion on things and what I think is happening, and just kind of like talking off the top of my head, my feelings about it, and my thoughts on it, because I have a different insight to some extent than I think some people do, and I think it's important to talk about these things and talk openly about them and not be afraid to share your opinion on things and not be afraid to add your dialogue and your thoughts to controversial issues that are hard to talk about, because if we didn't talk about these things, we would never see any progress. So I am going to give my thoughts and opinions, and I hope you guys hear me out about what I have to say. But before I do that, I'm going to start eating. I'm going to start with a chip. So here's the chicken sandwich. It has, one of them has garlic aioli on it, and then one of them has this special like chicken sauce I bought from the store. But then they also both have cheddar and American cheese on them with shredded lettuce, because I love shredded lettuce, and pickles. Yum. Those are really good. I also used Hawaiian sweet buns on them. My gosh, okay. So I'm sure that I don't even have to explain what's going on to everyone. So I'm not going to really talk much about the initial murder of George Floyd, which I'm sure everyone can agree, or most people can agree, was horrible and completely unwarranted. There's no need for you to be kneeling on somebody's neck for 8 minutes, and then after they pass out or die, you still are kneeling on their neck as a police officer. Like, there's no excuse for that at all. I think most people can come to that agreement that the police officer should be charged and put away, and for sure taken off the streets. But the reason why I wanted to take so long to talk about it, or why I took so long to make a video on it, I've been like thinking about what I wanted to say for 3 days, because more and more stuff keeps coming out that, or more and more videos of police brutality is coming out that has completely shocked me beyond belief. Because before this, I saw this thing on Twitter where it was like, someone tweeted, they were like, black people have been trying to tell you guys that this is how police act, and y'all didn't listen, or something like that. And that's like kind of how I felt, because it's not that I didn't listen. I mean, I went to Black Lives Matter marches when I was in college and they were happening. And always in those instances, I was always like, yeah, the police are 100% fucking wrong in that case. But I always wanted to chalk it up to a couple bad apples and a couple police officers who had abused their power. And I think, in my opinion, after watching videos that have come out from protests, peaceful protests, where the police use extreme force against people who are unarmed and are severely, permanently injuring them. Do I even need to list them? I don't know if you guys are on Twitter. I don't think you're really seeing this if you watch the mainstream media that much. But on Twitter, you're seeing all these videos blow up of peaceful protesters getting shot in the eye, peaceful protesters getting kicked while they're on the ground, peaceful protesters being beaten with batons. And there's absolutely no excuse. There's no excuse when it comes to George Floyd either, obviously. Well, like I said, I think me and probably a lot of other white people who were never in those situations always felt like it's a few bad apples, and if we get those bad apples out, the police will be reformed. Like, that's the reform we need to do. And after seeing these videos come out, I don't think that's the case anymore. Now, if you are a cop listening to me right now, or someone who has family who are police officers, and is offended with me saying that, I'm not trying to attack the person in your family who you feel, I'm not going to make a statement on whether or not they went to the police force for the right reasons, but you feel like they did. That's great that they did that, and I'm happy that there are good cops who exist. I believe there are genuinely good cops who exist, but I also believe that overall the system of policing that we have in America is completely rotten. I've been doing research ever since this came out, all these like innocent protesters getting brutalized, and to me it has a lot more to do with the culture of policing that we allow to run rampant and we allow to exist in America, and the fact that they are given a monopoly on violence, which means basically they're allowed to use force. Like, we all know this. Police are allowed to be violent with you for a reason, though. And I think the culture that we have with police in the United States and how we've kind of turned them into a militarized force to deal with civilians is disgusting, and I don't think that it'll be solved just by getting out some bad apples, because I genuinely think the whole police culture is rotten. And why do I say that? I say that because A, like I said, they're given a monopoly on violence. So they are literally allowed to do whatever they want to you, and they aren't held responsible by anything. I was like I said, doing research. They don't have any duty to protect us. There's been multiple court cases, Supreme Court cases, that have determined that even though the side of their cars say to serve and protect, they are not legally obligated or responsible to help us. So like there was a story of this guy in New York City who was attacked by this like crazy knife wielding crazy person, and he tried to sue the police for not helping him because they were literally behind the door of the subway, like literally watching it happen. And then once the guy disarmed the crazy knife wielding person, then the police came out and arrested the crazy knife wielding person. So the victim tried to sue the police department and say, like, you didn't help me when I needed help, like what the fuck's up with that? And there's been several cases that have given precedent to the fact that police actually have no obligation to protect you at all. So like the whole argument like, well, who are you gonna call if someone breaks into your house, is moot because they don't have to do anything. They're not legally responsible to do anything. And so we're giving people who are not really that well trained. I think I was reading another article where it's like hairdressers in the state of California go through more training than police do, or go through more hours to become a hairdresser than the amount of hours that police do to become cops. So we're giving humans guns and weapons, tanks, tear gas, all this kind of stuff to protect us when they don't actually need to protect us. Why? Like, why are we giving police tear gas that's literally illegal in war if they don't even need to protect us? If the Supreme Court's going to rule that they don't have to protect us, they have no obligation to protect us, why do they have all these weapons then? To wage war on us when we protest? Do we think that they're not going to abuse that power, and then they also have no repercussions if they don't use it properly? To me, that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's so many things that need to be fixed about our police culture, and that's just one of them. I mean, you look back at the Stanford prison experiment, I'm sure a lot of you guys have learned about this. I learned about this in psychology when I was in college. This one has the garlic aioli on it. The other one was the one with the chicken sauce. I like the garlic aioli better. I wasn't sure. So the Stanford prison experiment is just a case in point of how when you give people power, it's very easy when they see other people abusing that power to abuse it themselves. Or even if you just give people power, it's easy for them to want to abuse it. And so the Stanford prison experiment, I forget the doctor's name, I think it starts with a G. He wanted to create a fake prison experiment to see, I think it was just to understand the dynamics of if you were to randomly select people to be in charge of prisoners who were also randomly selected, how would they be treated? And the prison experiment had to be ended early, cut short, because the prison guards that were randomly selected, who were actually real civilians, they in real life were not prison guards, started to abuse the prisoners. I think this was in like the 1970s maybe. I love how I'm referencing it, and I like really haven't done much research ever since I learned about it in college. So this is all information that I'm like trying to pull out of the back of my brain where it's all dusty and cobweb back there. But I think it was in the 1970s, and basically it had to be ended early because the prison guards were abusing their power and abusing the prisoners. It just became like a groupthink mentality where they were all just treating prisoners poorly because they had been selected to be powerful. And I think that's the same kind of rot that you can see in our police system. And once again, I'll refer back to the videos that have been blowing up on the internet. I'll leave a link in my description of a link on Twitter that someone compiled of probably not even a fourth of the videos that have come out of police brutalizing protesters who are peacefully protesting. Not the rioters, not the people breaking shit, but protesters. And so in those videos, I would love for anyone to point out to me where the good cop is. Like, everyone always talks about, well, it's just a few bad apples. And I was also a victim of that thinking, I admit. I was always told throughout my entire life, you know, police are there to protect you. But I would love to see where the cops are protecting the protesters. Like, do you see anyone trying to tell their buddies to, hey, stop beating on this innocent person over here? That's not cool. Because not in a single video I've seen, I have not seen that happen. And so that's what I mean when it gets to the whole, like, mob mentality where police are the ones who hold the power. The bad ones wield their power unfairly against citizens. And then the good ones, unfortunately, I haven't seen them step in to stop it. And so that's where my whole beef comes from. Finally gonna try the cookie cake, which it did come in a big, like, the slice is just a slice of it. It came in like a big cake, but I wasn't gonna be able to eat it all for the video, so I just cut it. But I'm gonna eat, let's try this little piece first. I didn't bring a fork because I knew it was gonna be impossible to eat with a fork. Holy crap. Okay. My main concern was that it would be too much. Like, all the stuff mixed together was going to be too much. Like, I wasn't going to enjoy the brownie with the cookie with the M&Ms and the pretzels and the buttercream, but I enjoy it. This is really good. Look, you can see how dense it is. Like, you see, like, right here, how dense that is. They also sent my sister a gluten-free one because she's gluten-free, as many of you know. And she already had hers, and I tried it. So good for being gluten-free. At first we were nervous, like, did they get confused? Like, it's not gluten-free, but I can tell the difference between this one and the actual gluten-free one. So it actually was gluten-free. But, like, wow, they killed both of them. Yum. People will say, okay, well, the police are scared, you know, like, there was rioters, like, they're scared for their lives. That's why they're attacking innocent, peaceful people. That's why they're tear gassing people. And my response to that would be, they're supposed to be the professionals in the situation. They went through training to be able to carry a gun and all these weapons so that they would know how to properly use them if they need to. I don't care that they're scared. If you choose to become a police officer, that's the profession you chose. I honestly thought about being a police officer for a bit, and then in my mind went, I'm too much of a pussy, okay? I'm not gonna go breaking down doors, looking for criminals. That's not my cup of tea, so I didn't become one. They chose to become one. They chose to supposedly pursue a career where they could protect the public, and they're not doing that. Clearly not doing that. I don't know how anyone could argue from videos of these protests that they are. And so I think it would behoove the people who are in the All Lives Matter group or the Blue Lives Matter group to understand that the cops are, A, they have chosen that career, B, they have all the power, C, they are abusing that power. Like, 54% of LA's recent budget, like the city of LA literally just passed a budget for the year, I think the year, and 54% of it went to the LAPD. I have an idea. Instead of giving cops more money and more power when apparently they can't even control the isolated looting that's happening in certain areas. So they can't even control that. They're instead brutalizing and running over protesters. Instead of giving them extra money to not know how to control these situations that they're trained to control, why don't we put it back into the community so we don't have as much crime and we don't need police as much? Clearly, giving police more power has not helped people. You have millions of people out in the street saying so. So why not reinvest in the communities? Oh, I know why. And this gets to my whole point of the whole video. Politicians are bought and paid for by police unions. Like, I think Cuomo, who's the governor of New York, had received like over $600,000 from police unions for his campaigns. So that's why you're not seeing a change, is because the people who we elect to make change are bought and paid for by the people who don't want to see their power taken from them. Police don't want their power taken from them. They enjoy that power. How many people, I know fucking high school bullies who have become police. Like, once again, I'm not saying all police are bullies. I'm saying the job definitely attracts a certain type of person. And when you're a certain type of person and you like power and that's why you seek that job, you don't want to see it taken from you. So you pay out politicians to not restrict you or restrain you in any way. So once again, I just was ranting and didn't notice that my memory card storage was full. So I'm going to try to remember where I was when my camera shut off or when my video stopped recording. But what I was saying was the fact that someone like Andrew Cuomo takes $600,000 from the police isn't so that because they like him or because they just want to give them $600,000. It's because when you pay a politician like that, you basically pay them to turn a blind eye and allow you to do whatever you want and keep your power. So that's why you see someone like Andrew Cuomo going on TV and correctly criticizing police officers for brutalizing New York City civilians.
The NYPD and the mayor did not do their job last night. It is the largest police department in the United States of America. Use 38,000 people and protect property. Look at the videos. It was a disgrace.
And then behind closed doors goes and apologizes to the chief of police for saying that stuff on TV because he knows whose pocket he's really in. He's not in the pocket of the civilians or the average Joe little guy. He's in the pocket of the police commission.
The governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, as you know, yesterday lashed out at the police response, saying police essentially did not do their job on Monday night when there was widespread looting. He even talked about displacing the mayor and bringing in the National Guard. Is that necessary in your mind?
Absolutely not. I stated this yesterday that you'd have to come out and see what these men and women are doing. Don't ever call them ineffective. As a matter of fact, last night his office called and apologized to me. I know he called the commissioner directly to apologize that that's not what he meant, that he did not mean to put down the police officers. I'd hope he would come out publicly and say that again today.
I mean, that's also why the budget for the LAPD is 54% of the Los Angeles budget. And so that in and of itself, to me, like even if you're not agreeing with what I'm saying, the fact that in schools in LA, teachers have to buy supplies for their students, but you'll never hear of a police officer having to buy bullets for his gun, would you? I mean, how preposterous would that be? But it's okay that teachers who make barely any money have to pay for their own resources. Like, no matter what your thoughts are on policing, is that fair? I don't think so. So, it gets really interesting when you look at the origins of police in America. It's easy to say now, like, you know, police have taken it too far, police have too much power. But it was interesting to look at how they started. In the South, police started as runaway slave patrols. So if you're wondering about the racist origins of our police force in America, there you have it. They were literally formed as an independent group to catch runaway slaves, which were considered property, to return to slave owners. And in the North, they were also created to protect property. As soon as the wage labor economy in the North started booming, where immigrants had to come in and started working in factories and things like that, that's when police were really formed to protect the upper elite class from the immigrant class. So you have on both the North and the South, police being created to protect the property of the ruling class. And it hasn't changed much today. Like, we see police as there to protect us, which I've already covered. They're really not, because they aren't legally obligated to. But they really are there to protect what? The social order and the hierarchy of society that allows the white men at the top of society to retain their power. And that's really, in my mind, what they're still protecting. And that's exactly, in my opinion, what the police were kind of always there to protect. They will always squash the voices of the poor and the disenfranchised who aren't listened to when they peacefully protest, like I said. How many marches have we fucking had in the past couple of years? And government never does anything that the people are asking, but they always do what the people at the top want them to do. You look at the recent CARES Act, where people were given $1,200 a month. Oh, sorry, a one-time payment of $1,200. And then you look at that same act that gave $500 billion to corporations. $500 billion. You're giving that much money to people who already make millions of dollars a year. But you're not going to help out the little guy who's already living paycheck to paycheck. So, in an economy like this, uprisings are bound to happen. And in my opinion, even if the police don't know it, I'm not saying when they get hired, they're like, hey, you're here to suppress the little guy, just so you know. But that's what they're here for. Well, look at them, the way they're treating protesters. They are literally scaring them off the streets just to maintain the status quo. If we maintain the status quo, the people who are making money at the very top never have to pay the little guy anything. They never have to change. It is the job of the ruling elites to determine the configurations of resistance. So they are the ones who determine if they listen to people when they speak their mind. But when you have people marching and asking for police to be reformed, people asking for money during a pandemic, people, like, you're forcing people to stay home and you don't pay them any money. What kind of free society is that? And so when you have all of these ways of resisting that are closed off and you're not being listened to, this is what happens as a natural. What else are you gonna do besides riot? That's why I'm like so mad at people focusing on the rioting, because it's like, if they had listened to people, there would be no rioting. Is there rioting? Yes. Do I condone rioting? No. But do I understand it? Absolutely. I absolutely understand it. I mean, they're telling you it's Antifa. They're telling you it's out-of-state actors. They're telling you it's Russia. They're telling you all this other stuff instead of just admitting people are so hurt and upset by the system that we have in place. We need to change it. They would rather have everyone point fingers at everyone else than admit their own wrongdoing. And it's been done before in the past. It's literally documented that they've done this in the past. It's literally documented that they've done this in the past where they've tried to make citizens unsympathetic to resistance movements. It's called COINTELPRO, Counterintelligence something. I forget. But basically, let me read you exactly what they said it was for. So this is from a Senate report. So COINTELPRO was an FBI program that basically, like I said, tried to delegitimize resistance movements. They did it in a variety of ways by inciting riots so that they could pretend like the movement was unpeaceful. Like, for example, you kind of see that now. There's been multiple documented cases of random groups of bricks left in the street when there's no construction going on. It's almost like they're leaving bricks there so chaos does ensue, because it naturally will ensue when people feel this repressed. But then they can turn around and be like, haha, look, these people that threw the bricks that we left there, look at what they did. They broke windows.
They put them there
This the setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know where
bro.
we at.
They gonna set them hoes right up on the route.
Y'all know what building this is
Come
right
on
here.
now.
I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where the right there? Oh, okay.
Listen, I did jury duty 3 months ago. Y'all don't keep no bricks right there. Do better.
You see this happening today, but this is from a Senate report in the 1960s or 1970s where they said the FBI's motivation for this program was to protect national security, prevent violence, and maintain the existing social and political order, which is basically what I've been saying this whole time. And we can just go ahead and ignore that we're doing it for public safety or to prevent violence, because they did it against Martin Luther King, which is always who everyone hails as like the most peaceful activist of all time. So you're not doing it to prevent violence. You're doing it to control the narrative. So good. And this is why I get so mad at people like, I don't know, every fake Democrat ever that you see calling for people to vote now because they want to resist Trump. I'm not a fan of Trump either, okay? Like, I would love to not see him be our president anymore. Sorry to all you Trump supporters who watch me. I know there's at least a couple. I don't understand why. I don't get why. But like every fake Democrat who's calling out right now about voting and how important voting is, when, I mean, I'm also sorry to trash Barack Obama, to all the people who love Barack Obama, but Black Lives Matter started under his presidency, and he militarized the police. He didn't do anything to demilitarize them. So you want to talk all this fooey ha-ha bullshit about voting? We've been voting. We've been peacefully protesting, and nobody in government ever listens to the people and never does what the people want. Bill de Blasio is a Democrat. Eric Garcetti is a Democrat. And you see the LAPD and the NYPD brutalizing people in democratic cities. I'm sorry, but clearly we got to do a little bit something else besides vote in people who will continue to take campaign contributions and do the bidding of the people that they got those contributions from. I mean, I don't see how we're going to change anything until we get people in office who actually feel like they should be accountable to the American people. So that's basically my thoughts on everything that's happening right now. And I think that's also why you consistently see racism come out so obviously when it comes to police, because I'm not even saying police officers are inherently racist. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that people who are racist intentionally take that job, but the laws that have been created and written intentionally to keep people of color at the bottom of our society are reinforced by police officers. And so I think that's why you see so much racism in the police force. Like, if you look at the war on drugs, for example, there's no evidence that people of color, or black people, Mexican people, whatever, use drugs at a higher rate than white people. But you have the war on drugs and the crime bill from the 90s, where people who did crack cocaine, wealthier white people, used powder cocaine. Poor communities of color used crack cocaine, which is not different from powder cocaine. It's the same substance, just in different forms. You had sentences that were way longer for crack cocaine. And so you see these racist policies being enacted. I'm not saying that police by themselves are inherently racist. I'm saying a lot of the laws they've been given to enforce are racist. And I think it's at the expense of people of color, because it's always been of the benefit of white people to keep people of color marginalized. Or it's the same thing with stop and frisk in the NYPD, where up until 2013, you had police officers stopping and frisking men of color, where less than 1% of the time, I think it was like 0.1% of the time, it resulted in a actual conviction and jail sentence. So like 99.9% of the time, stop and frisk, where you actually take away someone's rights to not be searched unreasonably. You have it not working 99.9% of the time, but then you also have officers out there enforcing these racist policies. And that's what I think the whole problem with policing is they are there as safeguards for the status quo and the social order that people at the top want to maintain, literally. It even goes back to the origin of the word or the term marijuana in the United States. In the 1930s, there was an anti-weed campaign that was orchestrated by, I forget the guy's name, but basically he wanted to create clothes out of polyester. And hemp was a really popular and versatile plant. You know, like you can create clothes with it, you can obviously smoke it, you can do all this kind of stuff with it. He, with the help of other people in government who he paid, created this anti-weed campaign where they vilified it as, and they said that weed was like this super disgusting drug that people of color use, that were like forcing white women to sleep with them and like all this crazy racist shit. And to this day, you see those stereotypes still in society where people view weed as like this horrible drug that gangsters use and like all these poor people. And in reality, it was the white man vilifying a drug so that he could make money on making people polyester clothes. And you also see how it still has implications in society today, where you see all these non-violent drug offenders locked up for years because they were selling marijuana or using marijuana. And then, yeah, the term marijuana, they specifically picked that because that was like the Spanish slang word for it, and they wanted to make it sound foreign so that white people would be scared of it. And that story in and of itself just explains how they will try to vilify a group and like set people against that group just to push their own agenda. So I would just ask everyone to like seriously question everything that they're seeing in the media and all the stories that they're hearing, and ask yourselves, well, why are they telling this story? Why is the media pushing this story? Why is the president pushing this story? Why are people in the Senate pushing this story? Does it benefit them to push this story and to push this narrative? And if so, should you believe it?